Sri Rama Rama Ramedi Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane. On this auspicious occasion of Ramanavami, may you all be blessed, and I'm so happy to be here today. And this particular name of Rama, if spoken just once, is equivalent to saying the 1008 names of Vishnu, Mahavishnu, the Vishnu Sahasranama. Because the name of Rama, the mantra Rama, is what's called a Taraka mantra. Taraka mantra, it means it gives you straight moksha. It takes you to moksha. So, and it's very particular in the word, two words, Rama. They take in the essence of both the great gods of Hinduism, that is Shiva, as well as Narayana. That means, if you take away Ra from Narayana, what is left? Nayana, not Narayana. If you take away Ma from Namah Shivaya, what is left? Na Shivaya. So, the two main words, the most important letters of both these names of the mantras of the gods, make up the name Rama. So it's a Taraka mantra, it will take you to moksha. So we are very, very fortunate, and I consider myself most really blessed to be here on such an auspicious occasion. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshal Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Vatsangam Mahoraskam, Vanamala Virajidam, Shankachakradharam Devam, Krishnam Vande Jagagurum. I bow to Lord Krishna, the preceptor of the universe, who carries a conch and the discus in his hands, and is adorned with a garland of wild flowers, the Vanamala. Hari Om Tat Sat. I bow to all the noble souls who have assembled here today. So today we are supposed to do the 5th chapter. Before going straight into the verses, let us see. Actually, the 3 chapters, 3, 4, and 5, they deal with karma and sannyasa. 3 deals with karma, and the 4th, after the avatar is given, he continues with karma yoga, and the 5th takes up karma sannyasa. Now, what is the difference between karma yoga and karma sannyasa? This is an important aspect. Actually, what Bhagavan says is there is no difference. Both are the same because both lead to the same. But, you know, there's one verse in the 4th chapter, I think, which he says, Karmanya karmaya pasyet na karmani sakarmani sabbuddhiman manisheshu karmavit siraha. What does he mean? What is action in inaction and what is inaction in action? He who knows the difference between this is he is the knower of all. So this is it looks like as if some child's riddle. This is what is action in inaction and inaction in action. What is he trying to say? Poor Arjuna, he was totally befuddled. The 3rd chapter itself, he was a bit going round and round, because then after that, at least he could understand. Okay, karma yoga, he said. But then 4th chapter, then again the same thing is reiterated. Then in the 5th chapter, it obviously looks as if he has not understood anything of either 3rd chapter or 4th chapter, because his very first question here, Sannyasam karmanam Krishna punar yogam cha sapsasi yat shreyad edaryo yegam tanme bhuhi sunischitam. Bhagavan, you are really, you know, totally torturing me by all this. Sometimes you say sannyasa is better than karma. Then you say karma is better than. What are you? You're totally befuddling. I'm totally befuddled by all what you're saying. Please, just tell me one word. Which is better? Do you think Bhagavan will give me one word? No. The whole of 5th chapter is about what? Because it's always been a mystery to me, to everybody. From ancient times, everybody, in every religion actually, everybody thinks sannyasa is far superior to karma. Because karma will always bind us, what we say. And sannyasa is that highest quality. That's why the sannyasi sitting in an ashram or a monastery is considered to be far superior. to the Karma Yogi. That has been a misconception from ancient times. Even today, it's the same. You all bow down before sannyasi, and they don't think a Karma Yogi is the equivalent of a sannyasi at all. Now, the fact is, we don't know what is actual sannyas. If they knew, they wouldn't call all these nakli sannyasis wearing orange robes as sannyasis. In fact, that's one of the reasons I never took sannyas, because I didn't want to be counted amongst one of the nakli yogis. I always, when somebody asks you, are you a yogi? I said, no, I'm not a yogi, I'm a gopi. So I will never wear orange clothes. So wearing of orange clothes does not mean you're. In fact, the word sannyas is a very amazing idea which Hinduism gives us. What exactly is sannyasa? The sannyasa, by taking a dip in the Ganga and putting on your other clothes and putting these clothes, does not make you a sannyasi. You have renounced the world, you say. What is the world? You are part of the world, isn't it? If you have renounced the world, you should renounce yourself also. So, what exactly do we mean? What is the idea of sannyas is given in our scriptures? It's an amazing idea. That is, a sannyasi can renounce the world only because he is not dependent on the world. Anyone who is not dependent on the world can be called sannyasi. Is any one of us not can say I'm not dependent? If people say, oh yeah, I'm very independent. I mean, I don't need anyone. I can look out. My dear chap, you understand? Even for that morning cup of tea or coffee you want, how many people have you dependent on? How many people, starting from the tea pickers, leaf pickers in Darjeeling or wherever, up to the time it's done, up to this thing, up to the maid or your wife or whoever who is making the cup of tea and bringing you. How many people count and see? And in between the shopkeeper and so on and so forth. So there is no end to our dependency on the world. Then even the sannyasi, the first thing you will find all these sannyasis, they all flock together to the nearest chai shop also. So only a person who has no dependence on anybody or anything in the world, not even dependence on himself, only such a person can be called a sannyasi. Just imagine the amazing idea. That is an amazing idea. This sannyas, true sannyasi, has dependence on nothing except God. It is just, when we go, sometimes even go away, that's why, ancient days, we were told to go on pilgrimages. Because when we are in this comfort zone, made about all these comforting things, that we can chant away the Gita, we can talk about sannyas and yoga and karma and all that, but take you all and put you in the Himalayas. Not now. Now I know people who have 4 dams they did in 4 days. Just imagine. But in olden days, pilgrimages were encouraged, part of our culture, because as I said, by letting go from your comfort zone, and you start walking, you take to the place of pilgrimage, there is that tendency of dependence on all these other things which you normally depend, that you don't have. Especially no dependence on this, because you don't know. You really don't know where this will work. No Wi-Fi. Oh my God, no Wi-Fi. How can I go there? First question before you go to any hotel, is there Wi-Fi? So, such dependence you have on gadgets, on other things, and so many things, that it's, skip it, just drop it. Drop the idea of sannyas altogether, because you will never be a sannyasi just by wearing orange clothes. In fact, this is just a digression. Last week, a young boy from Indore had come to the ashram, and I asked him, so many people, so I asked him, where are you, what are you doing, what are you doing? He said, I'm going on foot to Badrinath to reach there in time for the opening. On foot he is going, and he has hardly any money. He had borrowed something. I gave him one sleeping bag and said, at least you take this because you might need it on the way. Just imagine, I'm so happy to see at least one boy like that in our culture still remaining, who can just decide, I will go, let come what may. I will have my protection. God alone is my protection. I will go wherever it takes me. Because not your money, nothing you can help you or take you or guide you or help you in any way. When you go to places like that, if you are not being taken by helicopters and having a guide and a travel thing and all that sort of amenities which modern pilgrimage caterers to pilgrimage have now, it is something, an amazing experience. It's just an amazing experience. So that is why they encourage pilgrimages here. So that come back to the idea of sannyas. Sannyas is a very, very amazing, wonderful idea, concept given by Hinduism, in which the man not only forsakes the world. Why? How can he forsake the world? Which includes himself. He forsakes himself. How does he do that? Because he has no dependence on anything or anyone except God. That is, very, very few people who can. Only such people can be called sannyasis, and only such people are what the Bhagavan is talking about in that. So, karma yoga, we can say, is inaction in action. Inaction in action. The karma yogi, though he is constantly working, it is as if he is inactive. Because, now give an example of the fan. A fan, when it's spinning fast, you look at it, it looks as if it's totally inactive. It doesn't look as if it's spinning at all. But it's in full action. That is the action of the karma yogi. Inaction in action. And what is action in inaction? Action in action is the action of the karma sannyasi, which is the 5th chapter. Action in inaction, that means even though he is inactive, apparently inactive, yet a lot of things happen because of his very inactivity. Now, to have a perfect example of a karma yogi and perfect example of karma sannyasi, maybe not possible. That's what Bhagavan himself took avatars. The avatars of Naranarayana, who always are there sitting in the Himalayas, they're totally inactive, and they are supposed to be and of course, Narayana sleeping on the serpent. He's totally inactive, looking as if he's fast asleep all the time. But because of his very presence, all the worlds keep acting. And the perfect example of the karma yogi is Krishna himself, he said. In one of the other chapters, he'll say, though I have nothing to work on, what does he need? He needs nothing, he wants nothing, he's got everything. Therefore, even then, I am ceaselessly active, he says. Why? Because it is to give an example, he said, to others. Because everything a noble person does, other people do. It's okay for an ordinary person to say, I don't do anything. But because nobody's bothered with him. But when the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister or somebody like that does whatever they say, whatever they are doing, all eyes are focused on that. Therefore, it is a duty of every person in a high position give a noble example so that others will also follow. So Krishna gives himself as the perfect example of the karma yogi. And as I said, the other Narayana or the Narayana sleeping on the snake will be called as karma sannyasi. Even though he apparently does nothing, everything is done through him because his very presence is so filled with this. Once it said when Ramana Maharshi, one person went and asked him, why are you sitting like this all the time? You don't say anything, you don't do any work. What is the point? So he said, Ramana Maharshi hardly spoke also. So he said, even though I'm doing nothing, actually some things are happening here because I'm sitting here. So that is this thing of the karma sannyasi. So now to Arjuna, who still befuddled, sometimes you say karma yoga is better, sometimes you say karma sannyasa. Tell me for once, what is it which is of the two is better? So today's this thing is na karma phala samyogam. Oh, sorry, is that the one? Oh, is that the one? Yeah. न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते. Now, just before that he said about Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Sugam Vashi Namadware Pure Dehi Naivam Kurvana Karyan. That's the last step. That is the person who Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasa. He has taken out all desire as consequences of desirable things from his mind. So he's a free chap. Because where does the the bondage come? The bondage actually comes in the mind, through the mind. The bondage does not lie in the objects. The objects are very innocent actually. The desire for the objects arises in the mind. So it is the mind which causes the bondage, not the objects. I'll give you an example. Somebody likes what is it? Rasagullas or gulab jamun very much. Now, he's like, it's very delicious stuff. Now, his friend says, oh, I can't bear them. It's too sweet and sticky for me. So one person likes it, loves it, another person dislikes it. So does that like and dislike lie in the object, rasgulla, or does it lie in the mind of the person? Again, the object is very innocent. Let me tell you another thing. Now you like rasgulla very much. So one person, have one, very good. Have another, very good. One more, and one more, and one more. By the fifth one, you are out. You are bringing it out. The same object which gave you such pleasure in the beginning gives you disgust in the end. So is the object is guilty of doing any of these things? The object is innocent. The world is innocent. Desire and attraction and everything else which you're thinking of is in your mind, not in the world. The world is innocent. So what does that come down to? Control your mind and you control the world. So that is the main point here. So that's why he's Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste Shugam. He has given up. Sannyas has been given in his mind. Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasyaste. He has given sannyas has been taken by his mind. So the sannyas comes first in the mind, not in the clothes you wear. So Namadware Pure Dehi Daiva Kurvana Karyan. That man who is totally detached from everything in his mind. He sits in the citadel of 9 gates. 9 gates. Which is the citadel of 9 gates? This body itself. There are 9 openings are there. 9 openings. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Down below as well. Similarly, that is a 9-gated citadel which we all live in. And that Namadware Pure Dehi Naiva Kurvannagari. He doesn't do anything at all. He may be constantly active, but the fact is actually he doesn't do anything because that activity doesn't bind him. It's only when action binds us that it causes harm to us. For the simple reason that you see, when you're sitting in a car and going somewhere, you're doing nothing really speaking, but the car is taking you. You are not running, like children have some four-legged thing and they run with the car. You are not. Though he sits quietly, the car is shaking. So it is that collective energy of the cosmic energy which is shaking. He's conscious of the fact that I am doing nothing. So therefore, therefore, na katrutvam na karmani logasya srijati prabhu na karma bhala samyogam subhastu bhavattade. So, na katrutvam na karmani lo. Such a person is like that Brahman itself. And therefore, that Brahman has neither katrutvam nor karmani. That means katrutvam, that agency in action. Agency in action is called katrutvam. I am the doer. I am the doer. That agency in action is called katrutvam. I am the doer. We all think, what am I doing? Yes. I did that. But something bad happened. Actually, I didn't, that he told me to do. That's why I did it. So, whatever it is, you have taken katrutvam. Either you have done it by yourself or you have not done it, even though somebody else told you that maybe. So, na katrutvam karmani, nor the karma itself. Now, the karma itself is not done by you. How is that possible? The reason is this. What karma, first of all, we have to understand how this cosmos evolves. How does this cosmos go? Have you any idea how all these planets go around? Why the sun and moon and rise and everything? All the stars are coming at a certain time. So many things are happening in this world. Are you all in control of this? Do you have any concept even of what's happening in this world? This entire cosmos, not even the world, this entire cosmos runs, is on purely highly oiled wheels which have nothing to do with you. They run according to a cosmic law of dharma, that is dharma, a cosmic law of by which the entire cosmos is maintained. Maintained how? Can you imagine such perfect maintenance? He doesn't have a maintenance team, going around checking up everything. No. This whole entire cosmos, which is timeless, beyond time, spaceless, beyond space, because even science has found out there is an expanding universe, expanding, spaceless. God knows where is expanding to, we don't even know. This expanding, timeless, spaceless universe, it runs on perfectly oiled wheels. Absolutely no problem. We don't have to interfere with this. But we are interfering. Every other creature is totally, they're conditioned. They will do exactly as that super agency wants them to do. Every other creature. The sun will shine, the rains will fall, the flowers will bloom, the kittens will come, the puppies will come, the other creatures are all there. They will all do their part without any problem, because they are conditioned to that, running according to that super cosmic intellect in which everything moves. So no problem. The only people, unfortunately or fortunately, who can go against this is the human being. That is, we have a logical mind. We have a reasoning capacity. So we can say, I am the Katrutva is taken by. I take on the Katrutva. That's why Bhagavan quickly says, I'm not the doer. I'm not the one who has given you this sense of agency. I'm out of this. If you accept this as your work, then it's your problem. You come immediately under the law of karma, which is a cosmic law which makes everybody responsible for their action. If the person does not act according to that law, that is called a papa or sin. That is why, and he will automatically be punished for it. You are not punished for your sins, but by your sin. You are not punished for it. God does not stay with a rod over there and a judge and say, okay, I give him life punishment or 10 years punishment. No. He couldn't care less what you're doing with your life. If you want to ruin your life, go ahead. You are given equal opportunity, either to go to Godhead or to go to perdition. Either way, it's your choice. It is not his responsibility. Understand that. You cannot blame him that, I'm such a good fellow. Why do you make me suffer like this? He just sits there and looks, too bad. If that's what you think, then that's another problem of yours, that you put everything on somebody else's head. We are very good at that. We'll never accept our own responsibility, always trying to put it on somebody else's head, and preferably on God's head, because we know he doesn't speak after all. You can see him as Murti is over here sitting around, but he may not even, sometimes he may not even listen. He may be out of station or something like that. But remember, the whole thing is one amazing cosmic law is going through everything, all the time. Everything works perfectly, without his involvement. Because that is how it has been done from the beginning of time. And there is no beginning to time. So it's timeless, spaceless. There is no beginning. We don't have our timing, reckoning of time is not linear. We have a circular reckoning of time. In a circle, can you say which is the beginning and which is the end? You cannot say. Therefore, our time is not linear but circular. So you can never say, when did it all start? People ask this question. So I say, can you draw a circle and tell me where that circle started? You can't say that. Therefore, you cannot say when because it's beyond time and space. So he says, Nakatratam nakarmani logasya Sri Prabhu. I'm telling you the truth. I have not I have not made that sense of agency to anyone. Na katrutam, na karmani. Nor have I given the order to do karma. Logasi Sriji Prabhu. Na karma bhalam samyogam svavastu vartade. Nor have I decreed that such a person must have such bhalam out of this. You must have this out of this. That means if you do good, you will do something. If you do it, that is your law of karma. So law of karma is that it's a law. It doesn't mean that he has making you, giving something to you because you're so good. That's why we go and pester the gods in all the temples. Out of all that, actually, who benefits is only the pujari, actually speaking, because God couldn't care less what you do. And of course, they also have to live, so in one way it's good. But apart from that, it doesn't do much good at all. Because nagatritvam, nagarmani, logasya, na karma phala samyogam. I have not decided all for the fruits of action. Everything is decided by that law itself, which is a self-contained law. It goes on by itself. Like nowadays, cars, you don't have to do anything. You just sit there and do something and it goes by itself. So it's all made by the maker, the beginning itself for them. So you don't have to do it. So na katratam karmani, I'm not the one who's running the car, I'm not the one who, you can say, isn't it? Similarly, he says, na karma phala samyoga. I have not said what is the karma bhala that you should do. As I told you, he is not punishing you for your sins. He is not sitting there and saying, oh, this man is a pabi, I shall put him into hell. No, he doesn't say that. What punishes you is the karma, the sin itself. The sin punishes you. You are punished by the sin, not for the sin. There is no third party there which will judge you and give you punishment. That sin itself. Because why? That sin is going against that law. See, if you are not following the maker of the car, the model of the car, and you do something, the car will go off on a trip of its own. So, are you being punished because of something? No, you are punished by the fact that you did a wrong mistake. You did a mistake against that law of that car. That is what is punishing you. It takes you off the road. So it's not that somebody else is punishing you for your what you have done. That itself is punishing you because you are going against the dharma, the cosmic law of dharma. Every time you go against that cosmic law of dharma, you are automatically punished for it. Automatically. You understand? It's like saying when I ate bad food today, tomorrow I had a terrible stomach. Oh God, why do you give me this bad stomach? My dear child, why did you take bad food yesterday? Isn't it? So, anything that happens, all these, he just, karma phala samyogam, I do not give the karma phala also. That is all done according to your action. Karma phala samyogam, swabhavastu pravartate, swabhava, that is the swabhava of the whole nature, swabhava, which makes everything run on very oiled wheels. If we simply keep quiet and do nothing also, world will go on as it is. We just have to do our duty. That's all we have to do. We don't have to bother about what result will I get. Will it be good or bad or indifferent? What should I do and all? You don't have this whole time. We waste that time and effort thinking of that future which you might never live even to see that. You have what guarantee you have that you will live till tomorrow? You may not even see that future which you are dreaming about or worried about. The rest of the time you're thinking, oh, what a wonderful time I had. When I was young, it was so nice. How is it going to help you now? So, karma phala tyagam svabhavastu vartate. Nadattam kasidit pama najaiva suhritam. I have not taken on the pama and punya of anyone, he says. I have not taken on. I have not taken on the agency. I have not given karma phala. I'm not the one to give. Neither have I. Nadate kasid. I have not taken down the paba or punya of anybody. Atnena amridam jnanam tena muhyanti janta. But atjnanam, we are covered with ignorance. Ignorance, but because we think I am the doer. I am the super agency who is in control of my life and I shall continue as I. He says, sure, go ahead. But what is it? That the fact that you go against that particular cosmic order, That is what it gives rise to Pava or Punya. If you follow the cosmic order as it is meant to be, that's Punya. You make automatically, you get credit for that. Automatic. It's an automatic system which was set from eternity. Neither your interference or your not liking about it or your accepting, nothing is going to make no difference to it. It will continue by itself. Ajnanenamradam jnanam. Therefore, it's because you have totally no idea, no concept of this amazing law. That is why muhyanti jana, all people are muhyanti, that means totally bewildered by that. We are under sort of a delusion by that. Jnanena tu tatjnanam yesham nashtam atmana tesham adityavatjnanam prakashayat tatparam. Now, when the jnana, or the knowledge of the working of the cosmos, the knowledge of how this amazing cosmos goes on, that it's the adityavat jnana, that is like a sun. When all is terrible darkness suddenly, and suddenly you find, and you have no light, so you're up in the Himalayas. Nowadays you can't explain to modern people what it means to be in total darkness. You should come and stay with us for some time in the Himalayas. Sometimes it's total darkness, and it lasts for some days also because no electricity. Of course, we have candles, but then in olden days they didn't even have that. So when we all wait for the sun, and that sun is something wonderful. That is the prakasham which the Lord Himself has given us it's a present for us actually. We are all solar. This is solar powered planet. Remember that. Without the sun, we will be nothing at all. We will not exist without the sun. So that adityavat jnanam, that jnana which is like a sun suddenly coming, rising up in his thing and just spelling that. Jnanena tatjnana tesham jnanam. Tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayat param. That knowledge is what will bring prakasha or light to our minds. Tesham तद् बुद्धय तदात्मान तन्निष्ठ तत्परायणः गच्छन्ति पुनरावृत्तिं ज्ञान निर्भूत कल्मषाः तद् बुद्धय तदात्मान तत्निष्ठ तत्परा. So he whose buddhi this is that is in the intellect. By intellectually he knows, he is convinced that this is correct. Tad buddhaya, that through his intellect. Tad atmana, in his self itself, he realizes that my self is not some other, other sort of self. That self, that Atman, is nothing but that Brahman. So he has already realized that knowledge has come to him through his intellect and through the fact that his Atma is nothing but that Brahman. Tannishta tat parayanaha. That nishta, that is a firm belief that this is the truth. I don't care how many people may tell me this is rubbish or rubbish. You don't know scientific facts. That's why you are saying all this. He couldn't care less. Okay, dear, if you want to talk about scientific facts and all that, you can go on. But Tanishta, I have my intellect firmly fixed on this. I know that this is not. This is that power which holds the whole cosmos intact. That is the power which is leading the whole, not only the whole cosmos, but my own life also. So that Nishta, Tat Parayana, therefore he is very much into that. He's always into that. He's not bothered about other things. He's always that idea is always in his hand. Whatever he is doing or thinking, mainly in as far as a human being is concerned, it is the thought or the motivation or that desire for something that binds us to this wheel. And that is what causes the pava, what you call sin. Because that the action itself is innocent. The action is actually innocent. It is in the human being is the motivation or the intention that will cause the sin or pava. You can see that, I'll give you an example. Supposing some thief comes, wearing gold bangles up till here. So he says, hand over, and she refuses. And so he takes this thing, cuts off her hand in order to seal the gold bangles. Now another man, I don't know, in Rishikesh and all that, we have a ganna juice wala. They have a grind, not like fancy ones I have in Malaysia and Singapore. There is a machine by which this man will do this, and he'll feed the ganna into the ganna is sugarcane, by the way, into the machine. So one day he feeds his hand also into the machine. Now no, it was not taken care of immediately. It became gangrenous. Only then they took him to the hospital. What does the surgeon do? Cuts it off. In order to save the life. Both same action, both violent action, same action, but one saved and one destroyed. So, what do you think the karma phala will be? Obvious, isn't it? So, it's not in the human being, it's not the karma action, actually action which binds us, but the motivation, the intention. Okay? So, Vidya, now you come to the very beautiful thing here. Vidya Vinaya Sampanno Brahmane Kavi Hastini. Shuni Chaiva Shwabhagecha Pandita Samadarshina. Samadarshina, he sees equally. Who all? This is a very, very, what should I say, revolutionary statement to make at any time. And even in these times, which is supposed to be class conscious. I mean, not class conscious, but it's a really amazingly revolutionary statement to be made in those times. What is he saying? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane. A Brahmin who is not only full of knowledge, but humility also, very important. Some Brahmins are there who, Pandits and so on, full of ego also, because I know everything. I can quote, I can say the 25th thing of the 15th chapter of the Ramayana and all that I can tell you. I can tell you, like this I can tell you. Vidya he has a lot. But I can do this and I can do that, I am great. Vinaya is not there. You understand? So he's of no use. Because Vidya by alone is no use for him. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. When that man, that Brahmin, who has full knowledge and full of humility also, he knows that he knows nothing, everything is given by him. That Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane, that's such a Brahmin, an ordinary Brahmin, such a Brahmin, Gavi, a cow, Hastini, that is an elephant, Shuni Chaiva, Shwabhagecha, Shuni, dog. Also, Shwabhagecha, that is Shwabhagecha, that is a lowest rung of humanity. That means who eats dog flesh. That is the lowest outcast in olden society. Outcast. Because why? The dog itself lives on the fecal matter of human being. And this man who eats a dog who eats the fecal matter of human being. So how can he's totally out of this thing. So, such an outcast. Shunichaiva Shubhage. Pandita Samadarshinaha. That Pandit, what sort of a Pandit? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. He who is full of knowledge, but full of humility. He thinks he is doing nothing, that he knows nothing. Everything is from that one source only. That such a Brahmin, he sees, such a Pandit, he sees a Brahmin, a cow, elephant, a dog, and an outcast who eats dog's flesh. Samadarshinaha, he sees all as equal. This is, as I said, very revolutionary statement to make. To call a Brahmin and on the same level as a outcast, that's such a statement was very revolutionary for Bhagavad doing. Samadarshina, what is the reason for this? He does not see the external factors of this, either the Brahmin or the dog or the cat or whatever. He sees only that divine in him, that Brahman. Just like the goldsmith, you have got a beautiful necklace, but then I have to get the money somehow. You take it to the goldsmith, and the goldsmith quotes one price, and you say, look at the beautiful pattern, give me some money for the pattern. He said, what pattern? What pattern? Where? Because he sees only the gold. He is not interested in the pattern. It may be a beautiful necklace, it may be a gold ring, it may be. He is not interested. Just like that goldsmith only see gold in every type of ornament made out of gold. And the tiger doesn't see. He sees only his meal for tonight. When a man is coming, or a child is coming, or a woman is coming, or a deer is coming, he sees, nice, yum, flesh, I can have a good meal today. He's not interested in discovering whether it's a man or a woman or a child or a deer or a cat or a dog, whatever. He's not interested. He sees only the flesh. Hmm. So similarly, this man, to him, the whole world is peopled by only one. Aham evam. Aham avyayam is what God says. Aham evam. Aham avyayam. I alone exist. Aham avyayam. I'm not divided. Undivided. I exist alone is what Adi Shankara says in his thing. Aham evam. Aham avyayam. So I alone exist. There's no other thing other than me. There's only gold in any ornament that you take to the goldsmith. The tiger is seeing only the flesh he sees, not the differentiation of who is who and what is what. It may be the chief minister of the land, or he may be a paraya wandering a beggar in the streets. Makes no difference to the tiger. He doesn't get extra benefit by eating the chief minister. No problem for him. Whoever it is. That's only his breakfast, nothing else. So Vidya, Vinay Sammanne, Brahmane, Gavihastini, Shunichaiva Pagena, Pandita, Sammadarshina, because he sees the underlying reality which is that one and one alone. Aham, evam, there's only one in the whole universe. It may appear in 1,000 million different roofs, but there is only one. That is again, look at that, the greatness of the Hindu culture. The rishis, what they did, they made so many, there will say so many murtis, so many gods are there for us. But they took care to see that they didn't make every god into only a human figure. See how clever they are. We have elephant god, we have monkey god, we have river god, we have mountain god. So many times, why do they do this? Why do they do this? Asking us to worship a river or to make us understand, again and again, to make us understand that there is only one power. There's one, that same power supports the sky or the earth or the sun or the stars or the mountain or the river or in the animal. There is only one power which is supporting that entire creation. There's no two. So you must learn to see him in everything. That is the greatest teaching actually which only Hinduism gives, that to see him in everything. So Shri Shaiva, so that is why Samadarshinaha, that Pandit is Samadarshinaha, he sees everything as one alone. Then a very beautiful thing he says, this here, again this only Hinduism says this. Ihaivattarjita sargo yesham samye siddham manah nirdosham hi manah brahma tasmad brahmani te siddhaha. Ihaivattarjita sargo. Remember, if you want emancipation, if you want to be evolved, if you want to reach the highest, this is the place. This is heaven. This very place is heaven. Don't wait till you're dead and you may go to a place called heaven. Have you found anyone who has come back from heaven and told me, I just came back from heaven. Good, very good place there. We must all try and make it there. No, we have only the given by the Puranas and something. So why do you follow that? This world, and this world itself is capable of being made into a heaven if only you change your attitude towards it. That's what he said. Only the change of the attitude, and you see everyone as that and that alone. Why do we, in our culture, in 100 ways we are taught this. We go and bow at the hand, touch the feet of every single person. We say, why? It is not the feet of that Mr. So-and-so, or that Pandit or the yogi that you're touching. You are touching the feet of God himself, because God alone, divine alone, is in every creature that you can see. You can prostrate to a dog if you want. It doesn't matter if you know that that dog has nothing but that divine is in that dog as well. So, ihaivattarjita sargo. If you want to be in heaven, here and now is a place for you to enter heaven. There's an amazing exclamation he says, as I said, only in our religion we have this. That if there is a heaven, it has to be here and now and not in other. Because it is a timeless, spaceless thing. By creating a heaven somewhere above, far away, which you might or might not go at some time or other after death, You are making him in a creature of time, bound by time and space. But it's not bound by time and space. It's timeless and spaceless. So if there is such a space, it should be here and now. Because we live in the all present, all present. There is nothing beyond this minute. Because the moment you think of something in the future, you are conditioning yourself with time. And time means death. Time means death. It's the story in the Mahabharata Puranam, because he says, a man had come with some petition to Yudhishthira. And Yudhishthira said, okay, well, already, I have some other work, so tomorrow I will settle with you. And the man goes, and Bhima turns to Yudhishthira and says, congratulations, brother, you have conquered time. Because, what is the meaning? He says, how do you know you'll be alive tomorrow and you can do it? Huh? How can you know? What surety you have? So, so that's a beautiful, when I read that, I've always stuck in my mind, because that is how we think. We think I am eternal, I can always. You are eternal, it's true, but not in the way that you think you are. You are eternal in a totally different way. So if there is a heaven, and if they are going to paradise, and if you are going to be a most wonderful life, this is a place for you, my dear. This planet with all its difficulties can be made into a paradise if you all of us equally understand that one divinity alone is what pervades everything. And that divine is in you also, and in everybody else also. Because of which you cannot cheat another person, because of which you cannot rob another person, because of which you cannot talk ill about another person. If that understanding is there, this place itself is a heaven. We don't have to be there. That's why I said Hinduism doesn't give the doubtful prize of a heaven after death if you are good in this life. This is the prize which other religions give. If you are very good in this life, and maybe you can go to heaven after death. That sort of prize is not given for us in Hinduism.